You are standing in the middle of a medieval postcard, but something is terribly, horribly wrong. Your eyes are telling you that you are in a picturesque stone village, perched on a sun-drenched hill in the south of France. To your left, a Mediterranean sea glitters like crushed diamonds. To your right, the foothills of the Alps rise in majestic, purple-hued silence. But your nose? Your nose is telling you that you are currently residing inside the stomach of a very sick giant. You are in Grasse in the 12th century, and the air does not smell of Chanel No. 5. It smells of rotting flesh, stale urine, and the acrid, burning tang of arsenic. You are about to discover the origins of the world's most glamorous industry, but statistically speaking, the fumes from the tanning pits will probably burn out your sinuses before you ever get to smell a rose. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Go ahead and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. I love seeing the map fill up. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up the steep, cobblestone streets of Grasse. The path is slippery, coated in a mysterious dark slime that you really shouldn't investigate too closely. You are a tanner, a leather worker. In this era, Grasse isn't the capital of flowers. It is the capital of dead skin. The town is built around a spring called La Fou, and the water that bubbles up from the limestone is the lifeblood of your trade. But by the time that water reaches you, it has washed through a dozen other workshops, turning a murky brown. You enter your workspace, a dimly lit, cavernous room that opens onto the street. The atmosphere is heavy. Piles of stiff, raw hides goat, sheep, and the occasional car stacked in the corner, swarming with flies. They are green hides, which is a polite industry term for recently peeled off an animal and starting to decompose. Your job, quite literally, is to stop the rot. To do this, you have to soak the skins. You walk over to a series of large wooden vats sunken into the floor. You roll up your sleeves and your pant legs and step in. The liquid in the vat is a witch's brew of chemical warfare. To remove the hair from the hides, you use lime and ash. But to soften the leather, to make it pliable enough for a noblewoman's glove, you need enzymes. And where do you find enzymes in the 12th century? You don't have a laboratory. You have a stable. This brings us to a mainstream historical fact. The tanning industry of medieval. Grasse was heavily reliant on baiting, a process that involved soaking hides in a solution of water in dog feces or pigeon droppings. The bacteria in the dung produced enzymes that broke down the collagen and elastin in the skin, making the final leather silky smooth. So, when you think of the luxurious French leather trade, remember that its foundation was literally excrement. You stomp on the skins. Squish, splash, squish. It is rhythmic, almost hypnotic. If you can ignore the burning sensation on your ankles, you are working the enzymes into the fiber. The smell is thick enough to chew. It clings to your clothes, your hair, and your skin. You are a walking, breathing cloud of ammonia. But you are also an artist. You aren't just making saddles for farm horses. You are making gloves for the aristocracy. The nobility of Europe has developed a fetish for soft, second-skin gloves, and Grasse produces the best. However, there is a flaw in the product. No matter how much you wash that leather in the clear waters of La Fou, it still holds the ghost of the tanning pit. It smells faintly of the animal it once was, and the chemicals used to cure it. A fancy duke does not want his hands to smell like a wet dog, so you have to become a magician. You have to mask the stench. You step out of the vat and wash your legs in a bucket of cold water. You grab a bundle of finished gloves. They are a pale, creamy beige, soft as butter, but they stink. You walk out the back door of your workshop and into the hills. Here, the air changes. You are in a unique microclimate. Grass is protected from the harsh north winds by the Alps and warmed by the sea breeze. It is a natural greenhouse. Growing wild in the rocky, limestone soil are aromatic plants that thrive in the sun. You bend down to pick a handful of lavandula, aspic spike lavender. It's sharper and more camphorous than the sweet lavender you put in tea, but it cuts through odors like a knife. You grab some myrtle with its spicy green scent. You might even find some wild rosemary or lentisk mastic bushes. You return to the workshop and begin the process of maceration. You aren't distilling yet. That's too high-tech. You are simply crushing the herbs and rubbing them into the leather, or soaking the leather in a bath of fatty oils infused with these plants. You are forcing the leather to drink the perfume. This is the pivot point. You are technically a gantier, glover, but to survive the market, you are becoming a perfumer. Historians still argue about the exact catalyst for this transition. Some claim the shift was purely economic. Grass wanted to compete with the Spanish leathers of Cordoba, which were already being scented. Others argue it was a public health measure, a desperate attempt to combat the miasma, or bad air, that was believed to carry disease. Was the first perfume a luxury item, or was it a medieval hazmat suit designed to keep the smell of death at bay? As you rub the lavender oil into the gloves, you feel a strange sense of relief. The sharp, clean scent of the purple flowers overpowers the ammonia. It travels up your nose and cools your brain. For a moment, the tanning pit disappears. You are scrubbing away the industrial grime and replacing it with the essence of the hillside. You are creating the Gantier Parfumer Guild. In a few centuries, this title will be granted royal privilege by Louis XIV. But right now, it's just you trying to make a buck and not smell like a toilet. There is a quirky tidbit here regarding the specific materials you use. One of the most prized aromatics for these early glovers was the oil of the Pistachio lentiscus shrub. It wasn't just for smell. The oil helped preserve the leather and repel insects. If you were a rich noble wearing grass gloves, you weren't just being fashionable. You were wearing bug spray. The sun begins to set over the sterile massif, turning the sky a bruised purple that matches the lavender in your hand. You stack the scented gloves in a cedar box. They will travel to Paris, or maybe even to Italy. When the customer opens that box, they won't smell the dog dung or the sweat of your brow. They will smell the sun-baked earth of Provence. You wash your hands again, scrubbing them with sand and soap, but the smell of the trade never really leaves you. It's in the pores. But tonight, there is a top note of rosemary. You sit on the stone step of your workshop, watching the bats flit around the church tower. You don't know it yet, but you are laying the foundation for a billion-dollar empire. You are proving that humans will pay extraordinary amounts of money to disguise their own biology. The leather needs to cure overnight. The flowers need to be picked at dawn. You are tired. Your back aches from the vats, but the air cooling around you carries the first whisper of a future where grass isn't known for the stench of death, but for the scent of love. You take a deep breath of the cooling air. It smells of stone, salt, and just a hint of wild magic. The rustic, ammonia-tinged air of grass fades behind you, replaced by the damp, frenetic energy of a city that is bursting at the seams. You have traveled north, leaving the sun-baked hills of Provence for the gray, stone labyrinth of Paris. The year is roughly 1533, or perhaps a few decades later, as the influence of the Italian Renaissance truly takes hold. You are standing on a bridge, but not just any bridge. You are on the Pont au Change, the beating heart of Parisian commerce, a structure so crowded with 3-story timber houses that you can't even see the River Seine flowing beneath your feet. You are here because of a wedding, and because of a woman. Catherine de' Medici, the young Florentine noblewoman, has arrived to marry the future King Henry II. She has brought with her a dowry of gold, pearls, and something far more dangerous, her personal perfumer. You step into a shop that smells like a confusing mixture of heaven and hell. To your left, jars of dried orange peel, jasmine oil, and musk pods sit in neat rows. To your right, vials of arsenic, belladonna, and hemlock are stored with equal care. You are the apprentice to the most feared and admired man in Paris, René le Florentin. René the Florentin. René is not just a nose, he is an alchemist. In the 16th century, the line between perfume and poison is practically non-existent. Both require distillation. Both require extraction. Both are administered in drops. And René is a master of both. You watch him work. He is hunched over a copper alembic, his face illuminated by the flickering light of a charcoal burner. He is preparing a scent for the Queen Mother. Catherine is not a classically beautiful woman by French standards. She is short, foreign, and widely disliked for her influence over the court. She needs armor, and her armor is scent. She has made the scented glove the very product you saw being worn in the tanning bits of Grasse mandatory court attire. But these aren't just leather hand warmers anymore. They are frangipani gloves, named after a Roman marquis who invented a specific almond-based perfume. You take a pair of fine kidskin gloves. They have been soaked in a bath of rose water and ambergris for weeks. You wring them out. Here is a mainstream historical fact. Catherine de' Medici is almost single-handedly responsible for launching the French perfume industry. Before her arrival, the French court was rustic. The Italians were the masters of hygiene and cosmetics. Catherine brought her own tailors, cooks, and perfumers because she found the French lifestyle lacking. She introduced the concept that a person should smell like a garden, not like a horse. Her patronage turned the humble Gantier Parfumer Guild into a powerhouse of fashion. But as you rub a paste of civet, a glandular secretion from a cat, which smells fecal until diluted, into the seams of the gloves, you feel a shiver of unease. You aren't just making fashion statements. You are making weapons. There is a rumor whispering through the streets of Paris, darker than the plague. It concerns the Queen of Navarre, Jeanne d'Albret. She is a Protestant, a political rival, and a thorn in Catherine's side. She came to this very shop to buy gloves for the upcoming wedding of her son, Henry of Navarre, to Catherine's daughter. Jeanne d'Albret died suddenly a few weeks later. The gossip which you hear whispered by the washerwomen in the river below the bridge is that the gloves were the murder weapon. The story goes that René le Florentin infused the leather not just with musk and amber, but with a potent, slow-acting toxin that was absorbed through the pores of the skin. The heat of her hands activated the poison. She was literally killed by fashion. Historians still argue whether this is true. Modern medicine suggests Jeanne likely died of tuberculosis or a pleural abscess, common killers of the time. But the legend of the poisoned gloves was so potent that it stained Catherine's reputation forever, earning her the nickname the Serpent Queen. It cemented the idea that perfume was a tool of seduction and death, two sides of the same coin. You look at René. He is humming a tune as he crushes dried beetles into a fine powder. Is it a dye for a cheek rouge? Or is it something else? You don't ask. You just keep grinding the nutmeg and cloves for the Queen's pomander. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. Reen's shop on the Pont au Change became a tourist attraction for the morbidly curious. But it also functioned as a secret conduit for the Queen. Legend says there was a secret passage connecting the Hôtel de Soissons, Catherine's residence, directly to Reen's laboratory, allowing her to visit him in the dead of night without being seen. While the geography of Paris makes a direct tunnel unlikely, the symbolism is clear. The Queen and her chemist were chemically bonded. You finish preparing the gloves. They are exquisite. They smell rich, animalic, and spicy a scent designed to mask the terrible odors of the city. Paris in the 1500s is a sewer. There is no plumbing. The streets are open latrines. The river is a dumping ground. To wear perfume is to build a force field around yourself. It is an act of defiance against the squalor of reality. You pack the gloves into a box lined with silk. You sprinkle them with dried violet petals. The box is heavy, expensive, and beautiful. You hand it to a courier who wears the Queen's livery. As he walks out the door into the teeming crowds of the bridge, you wonder whose hands those gloves will warm. Will they belong to a lover? A rival? A victim? Rene wipes his hands on a rag. He gestures for you to clean the alembic. The smell of bitter almonds hangs in the air, a classic sign of cyanide, or perhaps just a component of a nice marzipan lotion. In this shop, you can never be sure. You scrub the copper pot. The metal is warm. You are learning that the art of perfumery is not just about making things smell good. It is about control. It is about controlling how people perceive you, controlling the air around you, and sometimes controlling who lives and who dies. The sun sets over the Seine, casting long shadows across the wooden houses on the bridge. The water below rushes by, carrying away the waste of the city, but the scent of musk and amber lingers in the shop, heavy and secretive. You are safe inside the laboratory, surrounded by the beautiful, deadly tools of your trade. But you make a mental note: never, ever try on the merchandise yourself. You leave the shadowed, conspiratorial laboratory of the Renaissance and step into the blinding, golden glare of the 17th century. You are now at the epicenter of the Western world. You are at Versailles. The year is roughly 1680. The sun is beating down on the marble courtyard, reflecting off 10,000 panes of glass and enough gold leaf to bankrupt a small nation. You straighten your wig. It's itchy. It's heavy. It's powdered with flour that is slowly turning into a paste in the heat. You smooth your brocade coat, which is stiff with embroidery. You look magnificent. But as you take your first breath of the pure air of the Sun King's palace, you realize something profound. Magnificence smells terrible. You are walking through the hall of mirrors. It is a spectacle of light and infinite reflection. But if you look down, past your buckled shoes, you might see, well, let's just say the housekeeping staff hasn't been by yet. Versailles is home to thousands of nobles, servants, and hangers-on, and it was built without a sewage system. The staircases are makeshift latrines. The courtyards are open sewers. The glorious fountains are fed by water pumped from the Seine, which is teeming with the waste of Paris. The smell is a physical wall. It is a mixture of unwashed bodies, rotting food, animal waste, and the lingering smoke of thousands of beeswax candles. To survive this, you don't just wear perfume. You marinate in it. You are a member of the perfumed court, La Cour Parfumée. This isn't just a nickname. It is a survival strategy mandated by Louis XIV himself. The king is obsessed with scent. He demands that a different perfume be sprayed in the palace every single day. One day, it's iris. The next, it's tuberose. You, as a courtier, are expected to play along. If you show up smelling like yesterday's jasmine, when the king has decreed today is a rosemary day, you might as well exile yourself to a pig farm. But the scents you are dousing yourself in are not the delicate, airy florals of the modern era. They are heavy. They are animalic. They are aggressive. You reach into your pocket and pull out a sachet. It smells intensely fecal, musky, and warm. This is civet. Here is a mainstream historical fact. For most of the 17th century, the dominant perfume ingredient was civet paste. This substance is scraped from the perineal glands of the civet cat, a small, mongoose-like creature native to Africa and Asia. In its raw state, it smells overwhelmingly of vomit and excrement. But when diluted heavily and mixed with flowers, it adds a rich, velvety warmth and incredible staying power to a fragrance. It was the base note of the Baroque era. The king loved it. He had his shirts washed in water, scented with aloes, musk, and civet. He was, quite literally, the alpha male, marking his territory with the scent of a predator. You dab this heavy, musky paste behind your ears and onto your wig. The powder in your wig acts as a sponge, holding the scent for days. You are a walking diffuser. But why the heavy musk? Because you aren't bathing. Historians still argue about the personal hygiene of Louis XIV. The popular myth is that he only took 3 baths in his entire life. This is likely an exaggeration, but it stems from a very real medical doctrine of the time. Doctors believed that hot water opened the pores of the skin, allowing the miasma, the invisible, disease-ridden air, to enter the body and kill you. Bathing was considered a death wish. Instead, the king practiced the dry bath. You watch the ritual. The king changes his white linen shirt 5 or 6 times a day. The linen acts as a wick, absorbing the sweat and grime from his body. When he changes the shirt, he is clean. He wipes his face with a cloth dipped in spirits of wine. Alcohol. That's it. That is the hygiene routine of the most powerful man on earth. So, the perfume has a heavy lifting job to do. It has to cover the smell of a man who hasn't been submerged in water since the last solar eclipse, plus the smell of the thousands of people crammed into the palace. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. The scenting didn't stop at people. The obsession with perfume at Versailles was so total that the fountains were sometimes scented. Servants would throw massive amounts of flower petals or perfumed waters into the basins so that the mist spraying over the gardens would smell sweet. Even the animals were perfumed. The king's spaniels were reportedly doused in floral waters so they wouldn't smell like, well, dogs. You are petting a dog that smells better than most peasants. As you navigate the crowded galleries, you notice a shift in the air. The heavy, suffocating cloud of musk is starting to lift. You see the king passing by. He looks older now. He is rubbing his temples. He looks pained. Louis XIV, the man who once loved the strongest, most animalistic scents, has developed a sensitivity. The heavy musks are giving him migraines. He can no longer tolerate the civet that defined his reign. He has banned it from his presence. Now the order has changed. The Sun King wants the scent of the sun. He wants orange blossom. You scramble to adjust. You run to your chambers. You throw away the heavy musk sachets. You find a bottle of eau de fleur d'oranger. It is light, citrusy, and fleeting. It smells of clean laundry and spring mornings. You splash it everywhere. This marks a pivotal moment in perfume history. The era of the heavy, masking animal scents is beginning to wane, giving way to the lighter, fresher floral waters that will dominate the 18th century. The king's headache is changing the global market. You walk back into the gallery, smelling of neroli and bergamot. It feels cleaner, lighter, but underneath the citrus top notes, the base note of Versailles remains. You can still smell the latrines. You can still smell the unwashed bodies. You can't scrub away the reality of human biology with a little orange water. You look at the nobles around you. They are beautiful, painted, and bewigged porcelain dolls, rotting from the inside out. Their teeth are black from sugar. Their skin is pockmarked under the lead makeup, and their scent is a desperate, chemical scream for civilization in a world of filth. You take a deep breath through your mouth. It's safer that way, and bow as the king passes. The air rushing by him smells of bitter oranges and absolute power. You realize that in this palace, perfume isn't a cosmetic. It is a mask. It is a political statement. It is the only thing standing between the grandeur of the monarchy and the stench of the mob. As the sun sets over the Grand Canal, turning the water to liquid fire, the air cools. The smells of the day, the cooking, the sweat, the horses settle into the valley. You retreat to your small, drafty room in the attic of the palace. You take off the wig. You peel off the stiff coat. You are just a human again, smelling of your own skin. You reach for a basin of water to wash your face, defiantly breaking the rules of the doctors, because even a courtier can only take so much musk. You are living in the golden cage of the senses, and you are exhausted. You step away from the sun-drenched orange blossom courts of Louis XIV and walk straight into a thick yellow fog. The air here is not perfumed with neroli or civet. It is heavy with the smoke of burning juniper and the metallic tang of fear. You are walking through the empty, echoing streets of a plague-stricken city, perhaps Marseille in 1720, or London in 1665. The shutters are drawn. The doors are marked with red crosses. The only sound is the rumble of the death cart's wooden wheels on the cobblestones. You are terrified, but you are also prepared. You are clutching a heavy, intricate metal sphere in your hand, holding it so close to your nose that the metal leaves a cold ring on your skin. This is your life support system. This is a pomander. The word comes from the French pound damer apple of amber. It is a ball of filigreed silver or gold, segmented like an orange. You flick a small latch, and a slice opens. Inside, nestled in the metal, is a ball of paste made from ambergris, musk, cinnamon, and cloves. You take a deep, desperate breath. The spicy, warm scent fills your lungs. You feel safer. Why? Because in this world, smell is not just a sensation. It is a vector. You are living in the age of the miasma theory. Medical science tells you that the plague is not caused by bacteria or viruses, things you can't see. It is caused by bad air, the stench of rotting matter, of stagnant water, of the unwashed poor. That smell is the disease. If you smell the rot, the sickness has already entered you. So the logic follows. If you can't smell the bad air, you can't get sick. You are fighting an invisible enemy with an invisible shield. You are building a wall of fragrance around your head. You hurry down the street, pressing the pomander to your face every time you pass a suspicious alleyway. The spices burn your nostrils, but that burn feels like protection. You are essentially hotboxing yourself with nutmeg. Suddenly, a figure emerges from the fog. It looks like a nightmare bird. It is a man wrapped from head to toe in a heavy, waxed leather coat. He wears a wide-brimmed hat and carries a white wooden cane. But it is his face that stops your heart. He is wearing a mask with a long, curved beak, like a monstrous crow. This is the plague doctor, and he is a walking perfumery. Here is a mainstream historical fact. The iconic beak mask was invented by Charles Delorme, a physician to French royalty, in 1619. It wasn't designed to look scary. It was a primitive gas mask. The beak was hollow. Inside that 6-inch cone, the doctor stuffed a blend of aromatic herbs, dried rose petals, camphor, mint, cloves, and myrrh. As he breathed, the air was forced through this filter of potpourri, scrubbing it of the deadly miasma before it hit his lungs. He is breathing a bouquet of safety while looking like the angel of death. You watch him pass. He uses his cane to lift the sheet, covering a body on the street, checking for buboes without touching the flesh. He doesn't look at you. He is sealed in his own aromatic universe. But you have another weapon in your pocket, just in case the pomander fails. It is a small flask of vinegar. This isn't salad dressing. This is 4 Thieves vinegar, Vinaigre des Carvoleurs. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. The legend goes that during a plague outbreak in Toulouse, or maybe Marseille legends are slippery, a gang of 4 thieves was caught looting the bodies of the dead. They were dragged before the judge, who offered them a deal. Reveal how they touched the infected corpses without dying, and he would spare them the gallows. Their secret? They had marinated themselves. They drank and washed in a specific vinegar infused with sage, rosemary, wormwood, and garlic. The recipe became a sensation. You are carrying a bottle of grave robber juice, hoping it works as well for the honest as it did for the wicked. You take a sip. It tastes vile sour, garlicky, and herbal. It makes your eyes water. But if it keeps the Black Death at bay, you drink a gallon. Historians still argue about the effectiveness of the plague doctor's outfit. For centuries, we mocked it as superstitious nonsense. The miasma theory was wrong, after all. Smelling bad things doesn't give you the plague. The bacterium Yersinia pestis does. transmitted by flea bites. So, all that rose petal sniffing was useless, right? Well, not exactly. The debate has shifted. Modern scholars point out that the heavy, waxed leather coat would have been impenetrable to fleas. The cane kept patients at a distance. And some of the aromatic oils used in the beak, like camphor and garlic, are natural insect repellents. So, while the doctors were wrong about why it worked, the air, the suit might have accidentally saved them from the real vector, the fleas. They were right for the wrong reasons. You turn a corner and see a bonfire. The city authorities are burning aromatic woods, pine, cedar, and rosemary in the public squares. The smoke is thick and acrid. They are trying to fumigate the entire atmosphere. It's an industrial-scale version of your little pomander. The scent of the burning wood mixes with the vinegar on your breath and the musk in your hand. It is a sensory overload. You are exhausted by the constant vigilance of smelling. You are tired of being afraid of the air. But there is a strange intimacy in this fear. Perfume, in this moment, is not a luxury. It is not about seduction or status. It is about survival. It is the most primal use of scent, to distinguish life from death. The smell of sweet spices means safety. The smell of rot means danger. You are navigating the world like an animal, nose first. You reach your destination, a house that is still safe, for now. You slip inside and bolt the door. You finally lower the pomander from your face. Your hand is cramping from clutching it so tight. The metal is warm. You place the sphere on the table. It rolls slightly, the filigree catching the candlelight. It is a beautiful object born of a terrible time. Inside that golden cage, the ambergris is still slowly releasing its scent, a silent sentinel watching over the room. You wash your face with rose water to scrub away the sticky bad air of the street. You sit by the fire, the smell of wood smoke comforting you. You survived another day. You checked the air, you trusted the spice, and you are still breathing. In a world where every breath is a gamble, that sweet, cloying scent of cinnamon is the smell of victory. The heavy, metallic tang of the plague doctor's pomander vanishes, and the air is suddenly washed clean. It is replaced by a scent so sweet, so heavy, and so narcotic that it feels less like a smell and more like a physical weight on your chest. You are standing in a field of damp earth. The sky above you is the color of bruised slate, that indeterminate gray just before the dawn. It is 4 a.m. It is cold, and you are about to start the most glamorous shift of manual labor in human history. You are in the fields of Grasse, France, perhaps in the late 18th or early 19th century, though the rhythm of this work hasn't changed much since. You are a Culusa flower picker. You rub your hands together to warm them. The dew is heavy on the plants, soaking the hem of your apron and your shoes. You step into a row of low, green bushes. In the darkness, they look like sleeping animals. But if you look closer, you see thousands of tiny, white, star-shaped eyes blinking up at you. This is Jasminum grandiflorum, the big flower. In Grasse, they don't even call it jasmine. They just call it la fleur, the flower, as if no other flower exists. You reach out. You find a white star. You pinch the stem with your thumb and forefinger, give a gentle twist, and snap. The flower releases. You drop it into the wicker basket tied to your waist or the large pocket of your apron. Snap, drop, snap, drop. You have to be fast. You have to be gentle. You cannot bruise the petals. If you crush the flower, the oil oxidizes and the scent changes from heavenly to rotten hay. And you have to do this thousands of times before the sun hits the horizon. Why the ungodly hour? Because jasmine is a creature of the night. It produces its most potent volatile oils in the dark to attract nocturnal moths. As soon as the sun touches the petals, the plant stops producing the scent, and the existing oil begins to evaporate into the atmosphere. The sun is the enemy. You are racing a star. Here is a mainstream historical fact. To produce just 1 kilogram of jasmine absolute, the concentrated oil used in perfume, you need approximately 7 million individual flowers. A skilled picker, working with both hands in a blur of motion, can harvest about half a kilogram of flowers per hour. That's roughly 4,000 to 5,000 tiny blossoms plucked one by one every 60 minutes. When you see a tiny bottle of real jasmine perfume and gasp at the price tag, you aren't paying for the glass. You are paying for the 700 hours of human labor it took to fill it. The smell in the field is overwhelming. It isn't the polite, sanitized jasmine smell you get in a modern shampoo. This is live jasmine. It is rich, warm, and deeply animalic. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. The secret ingredient in natural jasmine that makes it smell so sexy is a molecule called indole. Indole is weird. In very low concentrations, like in a flower, it smells lush and floral. In high concentrations, however, it is the primary volatile compound in, well, human feces. Yes, you heard that right. The chemical backbone of the most romantic flower in the world is the same chemical that makes a bathroom smell like a bathroom. It's a fine line between eau de parfum and sewer gas, and nature walks it beautifully. This dirty undertone is why synthetic jasmine often smells flat or soapy. It's missing the poop molecule that gives the real thing its soul. You move down the row. Your hands are getting sticky. The flowers exude a waxy sap that coats your fingers, turning them black with dirt and plant matter. The sap is so persistent that at the end of the harvest season, you will practically have to sandpaper your hands to get them clean. You are not alone. Around you, you hear the rustle of other pickers, mostly women, often Italian migrant workers who have crossed the border for the season. There is a quiet murmur of conversation, perhaps a sleepy joke about a husband, or a complaint about the cold Mistral wind. But mostly, there is silence. Breath is saved for the work. The sky begins to lighten. The gray turns to a pale, washed-out blue. The birds start to sing, unaware that they are interrupting a billion-dollar industry. You panic slightly. The light means heat. You double your speed. Snap, snap, snap. Your hands are machines. You are grabbing the open flowers, ignoring the closed buds, which won't smell until tomorrow night. You are performing a botanical triage. Historians and botanists still argue about the concept of terroir in jasmine. Does it really matter that it's grown in grass? The French will tell you, absolutely. They argue that the specific microclimate of grass, the mineral content of the limestone soil, the altitude, the exact angle of the sun produces a jasmine that is sweeter and less green than jasmine grown in Egypt or India. Skeptics argue this is just marketing genius designed to justify the astronomical cost of grass jasmine, which can be 20 or 30 times more expensive than foreign imports. Is it chemically superior? Or is it just the champagne of flowers expensive because of the zip code? As you kneel in the mud, you probably don't care about the chemistry. You just know these bushes seem infinite. The sun crests the hills. The first rays hit the field. The smell changes instantly. The cool, damp, green scent of the night evaporates, and the heavy, warm, indolent scent of the heated flower rises up. It's like opening an oven door. Stop, the overseer shouts. Or perhaps just a bell rings. The harvest is over for the day. Any flower left on the bush is abandoned to the sun. It will be useless by noon. You walk to the weighing station. You untie your apron or empty your basket onto the scale. The pile of white flowers looks like a drift of snow. It is impossibly light. You have worked for 4 hours, and you have maybe 3 kilograms of flowers. It doesn't look like much. It looks like a pillowcase full of popcorn. But the smell coming off that pile is enough to knock you over. It is the concentrated essence of 1,000 summer nights. You watch the flowers being loaded into crates. They have to move fast now. They are dying. Every second they sit in the crate, they are fermenting. They heat up. If they get too hot, they turn brown and smell like rotting compost. They must be at the factory within the hour. You wipe your sticky, black hands on your apron. You are exhausted. Your back screams. Your fingers are cramped into permanent claws. But as you walk back toward the village of grass, the sun warming your face, you are covered in the most expensive substance on earth. You smell like a queen, even if you are paid like a peasant. The fields behind you are green and empty now, the white stars gone. But the plants are already working, pushing water and sugar into the next set of buds, preparing to open them as soon as the sun goes down again. The cycle doesn't stop. The factory is waiting. And you need to get some sleep, because the flowers will be screaming for you again at 4 a.m. You step out of the blinding, hot sun of the jasmine fields and into the damp, stone-cool interior of the factory. The air here is heavy and still. It doesn't smell like the sweet, narcotic flowers you just picked. It smells meaty. It smells like a kitchen that has been frying schnitzel for 3 days straight. It smells of animal fat. You have entered the silent, greasy sanctum of enfleurage. You walk over to a large wooden table. Stacked high against the walls are hundreds of wooden frames with glass centers, looking like oversized window panes. These are chassis. And in the center of the room sits a massive tub of white, creamy paste. This is the cores, the body. It is a mixture of purified beef suet, kidney fat, and pork lard. You might be wondering why you are about to smear pig fat onto a piece of glass to make high-end perfume. The answer is chemistry. Scent molecules are lipophilic, they love fat. They dissolve in oil much better than they dissolve in water. If you put a jasmine flower next to a lump of lard, the scent will literally jump ship, leaving the flower and burrowing into the grease. You pick up a spatula. Your job is to prepare the chassis. You scoop up a generous dollop of the fat mixture. You spread it across the glass pane. You have to be precise. Too thin, and it won't absorb enough scent. Too thick, and you're wasting valuable resources. You create a series of ridges or a crosshatch pattern in the grease to increase the surface area. It looks like you are icing a very unappetizing cake. Now comes the delicate part. You take the jasmine flowers, the ones you picked at 4 a.m., the ones that are still technically alive and exhaling their dying breath. You place them one by one, face down into the fat. You press them gently. You want the petals to touch the grease, but you don't want to drown them. You repeat this hundreds of times until the entire pane of glass is covered in a grid of white stars. Then you take another frame, already prepared with fat and flowers, and stack it on top of the first one, and another, and another. You build a tower of fat and flowers. This creates a sealed environment. The flowers are trapped between 2 layers of grease. As they die over the next 24 to 48 hours, they release the remaining essential oils. But because they have nowhere to go, the oils are absorbed by the fat above and below. The grease is literally eating the ghost of the flower. Here is a mainstream historical fact. Enfleurage was the only way to extract the scent of delicate flowers like jasmine and tuberose for centuries. If you tried to distill these flowers using steam, like lavender or rose, the heat would destroy the complex scent molecules, leaving you with a brown sludge that smelled like burnt cabbage. Cold enfleurage was a way to capture the true scent of the living flower without cooking it. It was slow, expensive, and gross, but it was the only game in town until the invention of volatile solvents in the late 19th century. You wait. The room is silent except for the squishing sound of fat being spread. The next day, you have to undo all your work. This is called defleurage. You unstack the frames. You look at the flowers. They are brown, withered, and spent. They look like tiny dried tobacco leaves. They have given up everything. You have to pick them off the fat. But you can't just scrape them, or you'll take the grease with you. You have to pick them out with tweezers or your fingernails, one by one. And here is the kicker. you aren't done. The fat isn't strong enough yet. You have to recharge it. You take fresh flowers, new ones, picked this morning, and press them into the same layer of fat. You do this again, and again, and again. For a high-quality jasmine pomade, the scented fat, you might have to repeat this process 30 times. That means 30 days of spreading, sticking, picking, and re-sticking. The fat has to absorb the life force of thousands of flowers before it is saturated enough to be used. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. The fat mixture itself was a closely guarded secret. If you just used raw beef fat, it would go rancid in a week, ruining the perfume. To prevent this, perfumers added benzoin, a resin from the styrax tree, and sometimes alum to the fat as a preservative. This benzoin added a subtle, vanilla-like undertone to the final scent, which became a signature of classic French perfumery. You weren't just smelling jasmine. You were smelling jasmine dash, infused dash, hamburger dash, helper dash with vanilla. Historians and artisan perfumers still argue about whether enfleurage is truly dead. Commercially, yes, it's extinct. It's too labor-intensive. A kilogram of Absolute made this way would cost tens of thousands of dollars today. But some niche perfumers claim that solvent extraction, using hexane, still damages the soul of the scent. They argue that the fat captures headspace molecules, the very lightest, most fleeting notes that solvents miss. Is it romantic nonsense, or is there a chemical truth to the superiority of the old ways? As you pick the brown, dead flowers off the chassis, your fingers are coated in the scented grease. You smell it. It is incredible. It is deeper, rounder, and more 3D than any liquid perfume you have ever smelled. It feels heavy and luxurious. But what do you do with a tub of scented lard? You can't spray pig fat on your neck. Well, you could, and people did use it as hair pomade, hence the name. But to make liquid perfume, you have to separate the oil from the fat. You take the saturated fat now, called pomade, and put it in a machine called a batteuse. You add high-proof alcohol. The machine churns the mixture for days. Chemistry comes to the rescue again. The essential oils, which love the fat more than the flour, now love the alcohol more than the fat. They migrate from the grease into the ethanol. You chill the mixture. The fat solidifies and floats to the top. The alcohol stays liquid. You filter it. Now you have the extrait, the pure liquid soul of the jasmine, floating in alcohol. The leftover fat, which still smells faintly of flowers, is sold to soap makers. Nothing is wasted. You wipe the grease from your hands with a rag. The smell is cloying now. It's too sweet, too rich. It sticks to the back of your throat. You have spent weeks in this dark, cool room, playing with dead flowers and dead animals. You look at the stacks of glass frames. They are foggy with residue. You realize that this entire industry is built on a bizarre form of necromancy. You are taking the reproductive organs of a plant, killing them slowly in the fat of a slaughtered animal, and then resurrecting their spirit in a bottle of alcohol so a debutante in Paris can smell nice at a ball. You step outside for a breath of fresh air. The sun is setting again. The cycle continues. The fat is waiting. The flowers are growing. And somewhere, a pig is terrified. You decide that maybe, just maybe, you'll stick to lavender next time. It's much less visceral.
You leave the greasy, suffocating room of the fat-smeared glass frames and step into a world of startling, almost blinding lightness. You are back at Versailles, but you are not in the Hall of Mirrors. You are miles away from the main palace, walking down a winding dirt path lined with wildflowers. The air here doesn't smell of unwashed courtiers or the heavy, animalic musk of the Sun King. It smells of fresh hay, warm milk, and delicate powdery violets. You have entered the private domain of Marie Antoinette, the petty Trianon. The year is roughly 1780. The mood in France is tense. Outside the gates, the people are starving. But inside this little bubble, you are participating in the most expensive game of Let's Pretend ever played. You are about to engage in the queen's favorite pastime, playing the simple shepherdess. You look down at your clothes. Gone are the heavy brocades, the panniers wide enough to block a doorway, and the towering wigs dusted with flour. You are wearing a simple white muslin dress, a chemise à la reine tied with a silk sash. It looks shockingly like underwear to the older generation. It is light, it is airy, it is scandalous. So is your scent. You walk toward the Queen's hamlet, Le Hameau de la Reine. It looks like a rustic Austrian village dropped into the middle of a French park. There is a dairy, a mill, and a farmhouse. There are cows and sheep grazing on the manicured lawn. But these aren't normal farm animals. You approach a sheep. It has been washed, its wool is combed. A pink silk ribbon is tied around its neck. And if you lean in close, which you do, it's because you are playing the role of a milkmaid, you realize the sheep smells like lavender. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. The farm animals at the Petit Trianon were essentially props. To maintain the illusion of a perfect rustic life, the cows and sheep were groomed daily by servants. Legend has it they were even lightly perfumed or washed with scented water so the queen wouldn't have to deal with the actual smell of a barnyard while she was milking them into Sèvres porcelain buckets. It was agricultural cosplay on a national budget. You are petting a sheep that has better hygiene than most of the Paris population. You leave the perfumed livestock and head to the queen's private apartments. It is bath time. Unlike the Sun King, who feared water like a cat, Marie Antoinette is obsessed with cleanliness. She takes a bath almost every day. You enter the bathroom. The tub is copper, lined with fine linen sheets, so her skin never touches the cold metal. The water has been heated and hauled by servants who are currently invisible to you. You sprinkle a handful of blanched almonds, pine nuts, linseed, and marshmallow root into the water. This is the bain de modesty bath. It turns the water milky and soothing. Then you add the scent. You uncork a crystal bottle. The smell that fills the room is not the heavy, civet-drenched power scent of the previous century. It is a floral bouquet. It smells of roses, jasmine, tuberoses, and orange blossom. This is the work of Jean-Louis Fargin, the Queen's personal perfumer. Here's a mainstream historical fact. Jean-Louis Fargin was a young, ambitious perfumer from Montpellier who realized that the Queen hated the heavy, musky scents of the old court. He created bespoke fragrances for her that mirrored her moods and her environments. He even created a scent called Perfume de Trianon, which was designed to smell exactly like the gardens outside her window, a hyper-realistic, Celefleur, single-flower focus that was revolutionary at the time. He was essentially the first celebrity stylist, but for your nose. You sink into the warm, milky water. You scrub your skin with a sachet of bran and soap scented with bergamot. You are washing away the filth of the court. For Marie Antoinette, this hygiene is a political statement. The heavy musks of the old regime represented corruption, complexity, and intrigue. The light, floral waters represent naturalness, innocence, and virtue. She is trying to smell like a virgin goddess of nature, not a political pawn. But there is a dark irony here. The simplicity costs a fortune. The simple muslin dress is made of imported cotton that is destroying the French silk industry. The natural garden is a landscaped masterpiece that requires an army of gardeners. And the light perfume is made from the most expensive absolutes in grass. Remember the enfleurage? Historians still argue whether Marie Antoinette's retreat into this scented fantasy world was a cause of the revolution or just a symptom of her isolation. Did her rejection of court etiquette, symbolized by her refusal to wear heavy makeup and heavy perfume, alienate the nobility who were supposed to be her allies? By smelling like a flower instead of a queen, did she make herself human and therefore vulnerable? When you strip away the musk of monarchy, you are just a woman in a bathtub, and women can be executed. You step out of the bath, you don't apply heavy powder. You apply a light dusting of violet-scented starch. You dab a little eau d'Ange angel water behind your ears. It smells of myrtle and iris. You feel clean. You feel modern. Feel like you are part of the Enlightenment, returning to the state of nature that Rousseau wrote about. But as you look out the window of the Petit Trianon, you see smoke rising in the distance toward Paris. The wind shifts. For a second, the smell of the violets is overpowered by something else. The smell of burning effigies, of uncollected garbage in the city streets, of anger. You ignore it. You're safe here in your perfumed village. You pick up a basket of fresh eggs. which were probably placed there by a servant 5 minutes ago. We're going to make a cake. Or at least, watch someone else make a cake while you smell like vanilla. You walk back out into the garden. The air is sweet, with the scent of the tuberoses fargen, planted specifically for you. These flowers are dangerous. Their scent is so narcotic and intense at night that young ladies were historically forbidden from walking through tuberose fields for fear they would have a spontaneous orgasm. Science is still out on that one, but why risk it? You take a deep breath of the cool evening air. It is the calm before the storm. You are living in the final, fragrant exhale of the Anzan regime. The revolution is coming, and it will smell of gunpowder, sweat, and blood. But for tonight, the world smells only of milk, honey, and the very expensive simplicity of a queen who just wanted to play house. You adjust your straw hat, secure in the knowledge that you smell delightful. You don't know that Fargen is already working on a new scent for you, a perfume of courage packed into a tiny jade vial that you will carry into prison. But that is a scent for another day. Today is for the violets.
The delicate, milky scent of the queen's bath dissolves instantly, replaced by a scent that is sharp, metallic, and terrifyingly human. You are standing in the Place de la Révolution, formerly the Place Louis XV, and soon to be the Place de la Concorde. The year is 1793, or 1794. The sun is high and hot, baking the cobblestones of Paris. But the air does not smell of summer dust. It smells of old blood, wet sawdust, and unwashed bodies screaming in unison. You are living in the terror. You instinctively pull your collar up to cover your nose. But wait, what are you wearing? If you are wearing silk, a powdered wig, or smell like Neroli and Iris, you are in mortal danger. In this new world, to smell clean is to smell suspect. Hygiene has become a counter-revolutionary activity. You look at the crowd around you. They are the sans-culottes, literally, those without knee breeches. They wear the long trousers of the working class. They wear the red Phrygian cap of liberty, and they wear their scent like a badge of honor. It is the smell of honest labor, of sweat, of onions, of bad wine. To mask this smell with perfume would be to reject the fragrance of the people. You are trying to blend in. You have stopped washing your hair. You have stopped powdering your face. You are trying to smell invisible. But as you navigate the crush of the crowd, watching the tumbrils roll by carrying the condemned, you catch a whiff of something shocking. It is a thick, cloying, aggressive cloud of animal musk, nutmeg, and heavy amber. It cuts through the stench of the crowd like a knife. You look around. You see a group of young men. They are dressed extravagantly, almost absurdly, with high collars, tight coats, and twisted walking sticks. They are not hiding. They are strutting. These are the Muscadins. The name literally means the musk wearers. They are the counter-revolutionary youth, the dandies who oppose the Jacobin and the Terror. And they have turned perfume into a weapon of political resistance. During the height of the Terror, a street war was fought between the sans-culottes and the Muscadins. The Muscadins used scent to terrorize the revolutionaries. They doused themselves in heavy musk, the very scent the revolutionaries hated. If you smelled musk in an alleyway in 1794, you were about to get beaten up by a gang of well-dressed teenagers. You watch them pass. The crowd parts for them, confused by their audacity. The smell of their musk lingers in the air. But for the perfumers of Paris, the men like Fargen, who used to scent the queen, this is a nightmare scenario. Their entire client base is either dead, in exile, or hiding in a cellar. The guild is dissolved. The Gantier Parfumer title is abolished. Anyone can now make and sell anything. The market crashes, so you have to pivot. You are a perfumer in survival mode. You can't sell Royal Rose anymore. That will get your head chopped off. So what do? You rebrand. You look at the shop windows as you hurry past. The bottles are the same, but the labels have changed. Parfum à la guillotine, eau de la nation, elixir of liberty. Some perfumers actually released scents allegedly inspired by the smell of the guillotine, or the blood of the martyrs. It was a grim, macabre souvenir trade. But the most popular scent of the revolution was actually a return to the very, very basics. Eau de Cologne. Why? Because it was considered hygienic rather than luxurious. It was medicinal. Napoleon was already popularizing it. If you smelled like lemons and rosemary, you could argue you were just being healthy. If you smelled like jasmine and civet, you are an enemy of the state. You arrive at the foot of the scaffold. The machine is there. The national razor. The smell here is specific. It is the smell of copper. It is the smell of wet iron. And it is the smell of the red balsam. Historians still argue about the extent of the macabre commerce at the scaffold. There are persistent accounts that after the execution of Louis XVI, people rushed forward to dip their handkerchiefs in his blood. Some legends say that executioners sold the hair of the victims, or even fat rendered from the bodies to make candles or unguents. Is this true? Or is it anti-revolutionary propaganda invented later to make the Jacobins look like monsters? We have physical handkerchiefs stained with what is claimed to be royal blood, but the idea that there was a thriving market in guillotine fat remains a subject of debate. It suggests a society so traumatized that it tried to consume its own history. You watch the blade fall. Thud. The crowd cheers, but it is a strange, strange sheer. The Great Terror has exhausted everyone. The smell of blood is no longer exciting. It is just nauseating. You turn away. You need to get out of the sun. You need to get out of the smell. You slip into a side street, heading toward the Palais Royal. Here, the atmosphere changes again. The Palais Royal is a zone of vice, gambling, and prostitution that the police largely ignore. And here, the perfume is back. The merveilleuses are walking the arcades. They wear sheer Grecian-style dresses that are dampened with water to cling to their bodies. A scandalous look called clothing à la victim. They wear red ribbons around their necks to simulate the cut of the guillotine blade. And they smell of heavy, intoxicating oils. In the face of death, the survivors have become hedonists. They are throwing balls des victims, balls where you can only enter if a close relative was executed. They dance frantically. They smell aggressively. You realize that perfume here is acting as a trauma response. The city reeks of death, so the people are dousing themselves in the scent of life. They are using jasmine and tuberose to scream, "I am still here," against the silence of the grave. You duck into a small shop to escape a patrol of the National Guard. The shopkeeper looks at you. He is tired. His shelves are half empty. He offers you a small vial of eau de sans pareil, water without equal. It is a simple herbal blend. You buy it, not because you want it, but because you need to smell like something other than the street. You dab a little on your wrist. It smells of thyme and bergamot. It is fleeting. It will be gone in an hour. But for that hour, you are not a citizen, not a suspect, not a witness. You are just a person smelling a plant. As night falls over Paris, the terror seems to exhale. The carts stop rolling. The smell of the river, the eternal, sewage-filled Seine, rises up to reclaim the city. You walk home, clutching your vial. You know that soon the wheel will turn again. The Robespierres will fall. The Muscadins will grow up. And a short artillery officer from Corsica is about to march into the city and drown the smell of blood in a tidal wave of cologne. But for tonight, you just keep your head down, hold your breath, and try to survive the most dangerous smell in history, the smell of fear. The copper-scented horror of the guillotine and cloying musk of Muscadins fade, replaced by a smell arguably worse, a wet, angry horse, galloping through the mud of Central Europe. The air is thick with cannon smoke, blood, and the sour sweat of 200,000 men. You are an aide-de-camp to the emperor, exhausted, your uniform stained. You haven't slept in 3 days. But suddenly, amidst the chaos, a sharp, bright scent cuts through the grime. It smells like lemons, rosemary, an Italian kitchen. You watch as Napoleon, the most powerful man, grabs a slender green bottle. He pours the contents over his head and shoulders. He rubs it vigorously into his chest. He splashes it onto his breeches. He is essentially marinating himself in eau de cologne. You are witnessing the birth of the citrus empire. Napoleon is obsessed with friction rubs and fresh water. He hates perfume. He despises the heavy, animalic scents of the Ancien regime. Musk smells like decadence and corruption. He wants to smell like energy. He wants to smell like a Roman general who just stepped out of a bath. Napoleon's addiction to eau de cologne is legendary. His valet recorded he used 50 to 60 bottles every month. That is 2 bottles a day. He didn't just wear it, he consumed it. As aftershave, bath oil, mouthwash, disinfectant. He famously said that cologne was a protection against many diseases. He believed the high alcohol content and herbal oils kept his mind sharp. You hand him a fresh towel, he is scrubbing his skin red. The scent in the tent is now overwhelming. A high-pitched scream of bergamot that drowns out the smell of the dead horses outside. But look at the bottle he just emptied. It isn't the round, bulbous shape you saw on Marie Antoinette's vanity. It is a long, thin cylinder, like a test tube or a very fancy rolling pin. These rouleau bottles were designed for the cavalry. A round bottle would break against the horse's flank or bruise the emperor's calf. A thin, cylindrical bottle tucked perfectly into the leather of a riding boot. This meant that even in the heat of battle, Napoleon could refresh himself. He was essentially carrying a tactical hydration pack, but filled with luxury fragrance. You watch him take a sugar cube from a silver dish. He dips the sugar into the cologne, waits for it to soak up the alcohol, and pops it into his mouth. Yes, he eats it. The canard was a popular remedy of the time sugar dipped in spirits. Napoleon believed the cologne settled his stomach and gave him a burst of energy. He is literally running on sugar and lemon oil. But this obsession creates a domestic war back in Paris. While Napoleon is out here scrubbing himself with citrus, his wife, Empress Josephine, is back at Malmaison. Josephine is a Creole from Martinique. She loves the heavy, languid, tropical scents that Napoleon hates. She loves musk. She loves patchouli. It is a passive-aggressive scent war. Napoleon writes her letters, begging her not to wash so he can smell her natural scent. But he also demands she stop wearing musk. She refuses. Legend has it that when Napoleon divorced her to marry Marie-Louise, Josephine vengefully drenched her boudoir in so much musk and civet that the scent lingered in the walls for 60 years. She haunted him with the smell he hated most. But out here in the tent, looking at maps of Prussia, there is no musk. There is only the crisp, clean, biting scent of the eau de cologne. It is a modern smell. It doesn't linger. It flashes and vanishes, just like the cavalry charges you are ordering. It requires constant reapplication. It is the scent of a man in a hurry. Historians and toxicologists still argue about the long-term effects of this habit. We know Napoleon died on St. Helena of stomach cancer, but some scholars have suggested that his massive, chronic ingestion of eau de cologne might have contributed to his demise. The essential oils in cologne, specifically bergamot and rosemary, are potent. In high doses over 20 years, swallowed on sugar cubes. They could have irritated his stomach lining or interacted with other medicines. Did the emperor accidentally pickle his own organs? Cologne is life. It is the most important supply in the army, right after the gunpowder. Years later, you might imagine him in exile on St. Helena. The supply lines are cut. The British are blockading the island. The rouleau bottles run dry. This is the saddest chapter of the scent. When he couldn't get his beloved Farina cologne from Cologne, Napoleon didn't give up. He became a perfumer again. He gathered the local flora of the windswept island citrus leaves, prickly pear, rosemary, and macerated them in whatever spirits he could find. He tried to recreate the scent of his glory days in a tin bath. You can picture him standing on the cliffs, looking out at the ocean, smelling faintly of a homemade, rough approximation of victory. The grand imperial sillage is gone, replaced by a desperate, fleeting attempt to feel clean in a world that has discarded him. But back in the tent, the emperor is ready. He smells like a lemon grove. He puts on his hat. He steps out into the smoke. And as the soldiers cheer, "Vive l'Empereur," you realize they aren't just cheering for the man. They are cheering for the one thing that smells like hope. You take a deep breath of the lingering bergamot, splash a little on your own face to wake up, and follow him into history. The sharp, biting citrus of Napoleon's battlefield cologne evaporates, leaving behind a ghost of bergamot that is quickly swallowed by a much heavier, hotter, and wetter atmosphere. You are standing in the devil's kitchen. You are back in grass, but gone are the silent, greasy tables of the enfleurage room. You are now in a cavernous brick-walled distillery in the mid-19th century. The air here is choked with steam. It is a sauna. It smells intensely of cooked vegetation, wet copper, and a scent that is so concentrated it almost tastes like metal. The smell of a million boiling roses. You are standing in front of a monster. It is a copper alembic still. It looks like a giant gleaming onion or a diving bell from a Jules Verne novel. It is beaten and dented from years of use, but it glows with a dull reddish gold fire in the dim light. Your job is to feed the beast. You grab a pitchfork. Yes, a pitchfork. You are not handling these flowers with tweezers. You are moving biomass. Behind you is a mountain of pink petals. Rosa centifolia, the May rose, or perhaps Rosa damashuna brought from Bulgaria. They were picked this morning, just like the jasmine, but their fate is violent. You shovel the roses into the belly of the still. Whoosh! You fill it until the copper tank is packed tight with pink fluff. Then you add water. Gallons of it. You are making the world's most expensive tea. You heave the heavy copper head, or chapiteau, the onion-shaped lid, onto the pot. You clamp it down. You seal the joint with a paste made of flour and water, the lute. As the heat rises, this paste will bake hard, sealing the steam inside so not a wisp of precious vapor escapes. You stoke the fire beneath the belly. Wood or coal crackles. The temperature rises. Inside the dark, sealed chamber, a violent physics lesson is taking place. The water boils. The steam rises. It pushes its way through the mass of rose petals. The heat bursts the tiny oil glands on the microscopic surface of the petals. The essential oil, the soul of the rose, is vaporized. It hitches a ride on the steam molecules, rising up into the neck of the still, the gooseneck, or called the signa. You watch the pressure gauge. This is dangerous work. If the pressure gets too high, the still can explode, turning the factory into a fragrant bomb. You are a mechanic of the volatile. The steam travels down a long, coiled copper pipe, the worm, which runs through a tank of cold water. Hiss! The steam hits the cold copper. It condenses. It turns back into liquid. But now it isn't just water. It is a mixture of water and essential oil. You walk over to the spout at the bottom of the condenser. A clear liquid is trickling out into a glass vessel called a Florentine flask, or an essensier. This is the moment of magic. You watch the flask. The liquid flows in. But physics does the sorting for you. Oil is lighter than water. Slowly, miraculously, a thin yellow-green layer begins to form on top of the water. That layer is rose otto or rose attar. It is the pure essential oil. Here is a mainstream historical fact. The yield of steam distillation is heartbreakingly low. To produce just 1 kilogram of rose otto, you need approximately 4,000 kilograms of fresh rose petals. That is roughly 4 tons of flowers for 1 liter of oil. If you do the math, a single drop of this oil contains the essence of about 30 to 50 roses. When you buy a cheap rose perfume and it costs $20, you are buying a chemical simulation. Real rose otto is liquid gold, costing upwards of $10,000 per kilogram today. You watch the oil layer grow, millimeter by agonizing millimeter. It doesn't look pink. It looks pale, almost greenish yellow. And here's the shocker. It doesn't smell like a fresh rose. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. Freshly distilled rose oil often smells terrible. It has a still note, a harsh, cooked, artichoke-like, or even burnt rubber smell. It's the smell of the heat trauma. The oil needs to age or oxidize for months before that sharp edge softens and the true honeyed rose scent emerges. You are smelling the plants scream. You have to wait for it to calm down. But what about the water underneath the oil? The stuff that makes up 99.9% of what you just distilled? You don't throw it away. That is rose water hydrosol. It still contains the water-soluble scent molecules that didn't make it into the oil. For centuries, the rose water was actually the main product. In the Middle East and medieval Europe, people used rose water for cooking, medicine, and washing. The oil was just a weird, waxy byproduct that floated to the top. It wasn't until the 16th and 17th centuries that the oil became the prize. You are looking at a historical flip-flop of value. You adjust the cooling water flow. If the condenser gets too hot, you lose oil to evaporation. If it gets too cold, the rose oil can solidify right inside the pipe, clogging the system. You have to keep it in the Goldilocks zone. Historians still argue about who gave us this technology. The cooling coil of the worm is the key. Without it, you can't cool the steam fast enough to catch the spirit. We generally credit the great Persian polymath Avicenna, Ibn Sina, in the 11th century with perfecting the refrigerated coil and extracting the first rose oil. But recent archaeological evidence suggests primitive stills existed in Pakistan and Mesopotamia thousands of years earlier. Did Avicenna invent it, or did he just write the manual? Either way, as you stand in the steam, you are participating in a lineage of alchemy that stretches back to the golden age of Islam. The separation is complete. You carefully open a tap on the Florentine flask to drain the water from the bottom, leaving the precious oil floating on top. You tilt the flask to pour the oil into a small, dark glass bottle. It is viscous. It moves like honey. You cork the bottle. You label it Rose of Grass, 1850. You wipe the sweat from your forehead. The heat in the distillery is oppressive. Your clothes are soaked, not with the clean citrus of Napoleon, but with the heavy, humid, cooked smell of the still. You smell like a jam factory that exploded, but you have captured the sun. You have taken 4 tons of perishable beauty flowers that would have rotted by noon and turned them into something immortal. This oil will last for 100 years. It will travel to Paris, to London, to St. Petersburg. It will be the heart of a perfume that a czarina will wear. You walk out of the devil's kitchen into the cool evening air. The contrast is shocking. You take a deep breath of oxygen that doesn't feel like soup. You look at your hands. They are stained with carbon and copper oxide. You are an industrial worker, a stoker of fires, a turner of valves. But in your pocket, in that tiny vial, you carry the ghost of a summer garden. You head home, leaving the copper beast to cool. It ticks and groans as the metal contracts, a metallic beast digesting its floral meal. Tomorrow, it will be lavender, or geranium, or orange blossom. The beast is always hungry, and the fields are always full. The humid, vegetal steam of the copper still and grass evaporates, leaving you standing on a wide, paved boulevard in Paris. The year is 1853, or perhaps drifting toward the glitter of 1889. The medieval mud is gone. The narrow, stinking alleys have been demolished. You are now in the city of light. You are standing inside a temple of glass and mahogany on the Rue de la Paix. It is quiet here. The air does not smell of a single flower, nor of a wet dog. It smells of something new: money, vanilla, and the Guerlainade. You are an apprentice to the House of Guerlain, working for Pierre Francois Pascal Guerlain, or perhaps his son, Aim. This family is doing for noses what Beethoven did for ears. They are composing symphonies. For centuries, perfume was simple. You wore rose. You wore violet. It was like listening to a single note played on a flute. It was representational art. A rose smelled like a rose. But Guerlain is tired of solos. He wants an orchestra. You watch the master at his organ, a tiered desk filled with hundreds of bottles of essential oils. He isn't just mixing flowers. He is mixing emotions. He is adding amber, tonka bean, iris, and heavy animal musks to the light floral top notes. He is creating a scent that evolves on the skin, changing from hour to hour. This is the birth of the pyramid structure. In 1853, Pierre Francois Pascal Guerlain created Eau de Cologne Imperiale for Empress Eugenie, the wife of Napoleon III. She suffered from terrible migraines. He designed a fresh, citrusy fragrance with calming neroli and rosemary to soothe her. But the genius wasn't just the juice. It was the bottle. He commissioned Pachet and Du Corval to create a bottle adorned with 69 relief bees. The bee was the symbol of the empire. The empress loved it so much she granted him the royal warrant. You are holding the original bee bottle, a design that is still sold today, proving that good branding lasts longer than most empires. But the real revolution happens a generation later with Ein Guerlain. You are in the lab in 1889. The Eiffel Tower is being finished outside. The world is looking toward the future. Aim is holding a vial of something that smells weird. It smells sweet, like hay or marzipan, but stronger. It is coumarin. It is a synthetic molecule derived from tonka beans. And next to it is vanillin, synthetic vanilla. This is the moment perfume stops being alchemy and starts being chemistry. Aim takes these potent, stable synthetics and mixes them with natural lavender, bergamot, and a heavy dose of civet. The result is Jiki. Jiki is the world's first modern perfume. It doesn't smell like a flower found in nature. There is no Jiki bush. It is an abstract composition. It is the cubism of scent. When Jiki was released, women hated it. They found it too aggressive, too confusing, too animal. It smelled like a person, not a garden. So, who wore it? Men. For the first 20 years of its life, Jiki was effectively a men's fragrance. It wasn't until the 1910s that women reclaimed it. It was the accidental invention of the unisex fragrance, proving that gender in perfume is just a marketing construct. You carefully polish a crystal stopper. The bottle is heavy lid crystal. It feels cold and substantial. Perfume is no longer sold in apothecary jars. It is sold in objets d'art. Historians and romantics still argue about the name Jiki. The Guerlain family legend says that Aim named it after a lost love, a young English woman he met while studying in Britain, whom he couldn't marry. It's a tragic romance in a bottle. However, the unromantic truth might be that Jiki was simply the nickname of his nephew, Jacques Guerlain. Was the first masterpiece of modern perfumery named after a broken heart or a little boy? The mystery is part of the marketing. As you work, you notice the clientele. They are the bourgeoisie, the new rich. They don't have titles, but they have cash. They want to smell expensive. They want sillage, the wake of scent left behind as they walk through the opera house. Guerlain gives them that. He loads his perfumes with fixatives, resins, and balsams that make the scent cling to fur coats. When a woman wearing a Guerlain perfume leaves a room, her presence lingers for 20 minutes. It is an olfactory haunting. You are mixing a batch of the famous Guerlainade, the secret accord of bergamot, rose, jasmine, tonka bean, iris, and vanilla. That forms the backbone of nearly every Guerlain scent. It is a warm, powdery, edible smell. It is the smell of comfort. Outside, the gas lamps flicker on. The city of light is waking up for the evening. The carriages rattle over the cobblestones. Inside the shop, the air is thick with the smell of civilization at its peak. You are no longer masking the stench of the tannery. You are celebrating the excess of the Belle Epoque. You place a bottle of Jicky into a velvet-lined box. It represents a shift in human consciousness. For the first time, humanity is smelling something that never existed before. You have outdone nature. You have synthesized a dream. You take a deep breath of the vanilla-heavy air. It smells like pastry, like skin, like gold. It is intoxicating. You realize that you aren't just selling a liquid. You are selling a memory of a love that never happened, to people who have everything but want just a little bit more. The warm, vanilla-drenched embrace of the Belle Epoque shatters. The heavy velvet curtains are pulled down, and the gas lamps are replaced by the stark, electric glare of the 1920s. You are no longer in a cozy, mahogany-lined shop. You are in a laboratory in Grasse that feels more like a clinic. The air is cold. It smells of ozone, hot iron, and something chemically sharp. You are standing next to Ernest Bose, a man who looks like he has seen ghosts. He is the former perfumer to the Tsars of Russia, a refugee from the Bolshevik Revolution. He has fled the snow of St. Petersburg for the sun of the Riviera, but he has brought the smell of the Russian winter with him. And he has a new client, a woman named Gabrielle Coco Chanel. She is terrifying. She hates the floral perfumes of the era. She hates the solifleurs that make women smell like walking bouquets of violets or roses. She says a woman should smell like a woman, not a flower bed. She wants something artificial, something constructed, something abstract. You watch Bose work. He is not just mixing essential oils anymore. He is reaching for a row of brown glass bottles labeled with chemical formulas. These are aldehydes. Specifically, aliphatic aldehydes. Carbon 10, carbon 11, and carbon 12. You uncork one. It smells weird. It smells waxy. It smells fatty. It smells like a snuffed-out candle or hot laundry steam. On their own, they are unpleasant, almost choking. But Bose is about to do a magic trick. He takes a massive dose of these aldehydes, far more than anyone has ever dared to, use and dumps them into a vat of jasmine and rose from Grasse. Fizz. It's an olfactory explosion. The heavy, indolent, dirty smell of the jasmine is suddenly lifted. The aldehydes act like a prism. They refract the scent. They make the heavy flowers smell light, airy, and sparkling. It smells like snow melting on a hot body. It smells like expensive soap. It smells like the future. This is the birth of Chanel No. 5. Here is a mainstream historical fact. Chanel No. 5 was the first major perfume to rely so heavily on synthetic aldehydes. Before this, synthetics were used sparingly to mimic nature. Bose used them to distort nature. He created a scent that had no reference point in the natural world. When you smell No. 5, you aren't smelling a garden. You are smelling a composition. It is the olfactory equivalent of abstract art. It is a Picasso in a bottle. You prepare a series of samples for Mademoiselle Chanel. You label them 1 through 5 and 20 through 24. She arrives. She sniffs. She dismisses most of them immediately. But when she lifts vial number 5, she stops. "This is what I was waiting for," she says. "A perfume like nothing else. A woman's perfume with the scent of a woman." She chooses it not just for the smell, but for the name. 5 is her lucky number. She presents her dress collections on the 5th of May. It is pure superstition meeting pure chemistry. But there is a whisper in the lab rumor that persists to this day. Did you make a mistake? This brings us to a quirky tidbit, the legend of the aldehyde overdose. The story goes that Bose's assistant misread the formula. Instead of adding a 1% dilution of aldehydes, they added a 100% pure concentrate. They added 10 times too much. The result was a sparkling, fizzy shock that should have been a disaster. But when Chanel smelled this mistake, she loved it. It was the overdose that created the magic. Is it true? Or is it a marketing myth to make the precision of chemistry seem like divine intervention? We will never know, but the result changed history. You watch as the golden liquid is poured into a bottle, but it isn't the intricate, flowery crystal of Lalique or Baccarat. It is a simple, rectangular, laboratory-style bottle. It looks like a whiskey flask. It has a plain white label with black text. And 5, it is radical minimalism. In a world of Art Nouveau swirls, this bottle is a brutalist brick. Historians and sociologists still argue about the soap paradox of no 5. Today, many people say no. 5 smells like old lady soap. But in 1921, it didn't smell like soap. Soap smelled like lye and cheap fat. No, 5 smelled like luxury. However, because No 5 became the most famous scent in the world, soap manufacturers started copying it. They put cheap aldehydes in everything. Over decades, the scent of luxury was democratized into the scent of hygiene. So, does No 5 smell like soap? Or does soap smell like No 5? It's a chicken and egg problem of industrial copying. You cork the bottle. The seal is not wax, but a membrane of bowdrichage tied with black silk thread. It is sealed like a secret. You realize what you have done. You have severed the link between perfume and the earth. You are no longer dependent on the harvest of a specific field in a specific year. The aldehydes are made in a lab. They are consistent. They are eternal. You have created a scent that is immune to weather, immune to war, and immune to nature. You step out of the lab. The air of the French Riviera is warm and smells of pine and salt. But the scent on your hands, that strange, metallic, snowy shimmer of the aldehydes, stays with you. It is the smell of the machine age. It is the smell of a woman who drives her own car, cuts her hair short, and smokes cigarettes. You have bottled the spirit of the flapper. You watch the first bottles being packed. They will travel to America. G.'s will buy them in Paris to take home to their sweethearts. Marilyn Monroe will famously claim she wears nothing else to bed. You have created a monster, a legend, a ghost that will haunt every department store for the next century. But for now, it is just a number. Number 5. You wash your hands with alcohol to get the waxy smell off. It doesn't work. The aldehydes are stubborn. They cling, just like the woman whose name is on the label. The sharp, futuristic fizz of aldehydes and the sterile minimalism of the Chanel laboratory fade away. The stark white label and the rectangular bottle dissolve into a swirl of opalescent smoke. You are standing in the middle of a crowded, bustling department store in Paris, the Grands Magasins du Louvre. The year is roughly 1904, or perhaps a few years later as the legend solidifies. The air is thick with the smell of wool coats, floor wax, and the murmur of shoppers. You are a sales clerk, standing behind a polished wooden counter. In front of you is a short, intense man with a mustache. He is arguing with your floor manager. He is holding a bottle of perfume. Suddenly, his hand slips. Or does it? Crash! The bottle hits the marble floor. It shatters. But instead of a mess, an explosion of scent rises up. It is La Rose Jacqueminot. It is a rich, velvety, overpowering rose, far sweeter and more intense than the polite floral waters people are used to. The shoppers stop. They turn. The scent is a hook, dragging them toward the counter by their noses. "What is that?" they ask. "I must have it." The man, Francois Coty, smiles. He just invented modern marketing. You are witnessing the moment perfume stops being a fluid and starts being a product. But to sell the product, Coty knows he needs more than just a dramatic crash. He needs a vessel that is as beautiful as the scent itself. He needs René Lalique. You leave the department store and travel to a workshop that feels less like a factory and more like a wizard's tower. It is hot here infernal, actually. You are in the glassworks of Lalique, perhaps at Combs la Ville. You watch as a worker pulls a gathering of molten glass from the furnace. It glows an angry orange, radiating heat that singes your eyebrows. But he doesn't blow it into a simple bubble. He drops it into a complex iron mold. Hiss, clank. He presses it. When the mold opens, the glass isn't clear and shiny like a window pane. It is demi-crystal. It has a soft, cloudy, milky appearance. It looks like frozen fog. You step closer to inspect the finished object. It is a bottle for Cody's enfleurage, but it doesn't look like a bottle. It looks like a sculpture. On the glass, in high relief, is a woman rising from the mist, her drapery swirling around the curves of the vessel. This is the revolution. Before this moment, if you bought perfume, you bought a generic pharmaceutical vial from the chemist. Simple, functional, and ugly. You would then take it home and decant it into a fancy crystal bottle you had bought separately. Usually baccarat that sat on your vanity forever. The liquid and the bottle were divorced. Cody and Lalique have just married them. Now, the bottle is the brand. The collaboration between Franco Cody and René Lalique created the modern perfume industry. They realized that the presentation was 50% of the value. Lalique designed the bottles, the labels, and even the cardboard boxes, which were embossed to look like leather or silk. They created the concept of packaging. You weren't just buying rose oil. You were buying a piece of Art Nouveau sculpture that you could hold in your hand. You pick up another bottle, the cyclamen. It is tall and slender, and the stopper is shaped like a chaotic tangle of dragonflies. You run your thumb over the glass. It feels different. It isn't smooth. It has a texture. This is the satin finish. Lalique achieved this by dipping the glass in hydrofluoric acid, a terrifyingly dangerous chemical that eats away the surface, leaving a frosted, soft focus effect. It makes the glass glow from within. But wait, there's more. You notice the grooves in the design are darker than the rest of the bottle. It looks ancient, like it was dug up from a Roman ruin. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. Lalique developed a special patina process to age his bottles artificially. After the bottle was molded, workers would rub a dark stain, usually brown, sepia, or blue over the glass. Then they would wipe it off the high points, leaving the color trapped in the deep crevices of the design. It gave the glass instant depth and contrast. It was essentially antiquing for the mass market. You are holding a brand new bottle that has been chemically tricked into looking like a relic. The stoppers are the crowning glory. You look at a row of them on a workbench. They are massive. Some are shaped like tiaras. Some are shaped like beetles. Some are shaped like nude fawns playing flutes. In the old days, the stopper was just a cork. Now, the stopper is the logo. But as you admire the artistry, you hear the hiss of compressed air. Whoosh clank. Whoosh clank. This is the sound of the controversy. Lalique is using a machine. He is using injection molding and compressed air to force the glass into the molds. He is mass-producing art. Historians and art critics still argue about the Lalique paradox. René Lalique started as a jeweler, making one-of-a-kind pieces for Sarah Bernhardt using the lost wax method, a process where the mold is destroyed to create the object. It was the definition of exclusive. But with his perfume bottles, he embraced industrial technology to make thousands of identical copies. Did he democratize art, bringing beauty to the middle class? Or did he sell out, turning sculpture into a commodity? Is a Lalique bottle art if there are 50,000 of them on a conveyor belt? You watch the bottles marching down the line. They are beautiful. They are identical. They are perfect. You pick one up. It is amber antique. The bottle is a tall, flat rectangle with women in Grecian robes molded on the sides. It feels heavy in your hand. It feels expensive. And that is the trick. The glass itself is cheap. It isn't lead crystal. It is pressed glass, but the design makes it feel priceless. You realize that you are looking at the birth of desire. The perfume inside will evaporate. The liquid is fleeting. But the bottle? The bottle is permanent. Even after the scent is gone, the woman will keep the bottle on her vanity. She will look at it and remember the luxury. The bottle becomes a totem. Cody knew this. He famously said, "Give a woman the best product to be made. Market it in the perfect flask, beautiful in its simplicity, yet impeccable in its taste. Ask a reasonable price for it, and you will witness the birth of a business the size of which the world has never seen." He was right. You walk through the warehouse. Crates are being packed. They are going to New York, to London, to Buenos Aires. Inside each crate is a little glass stream, protected by corrugated cardboard. You stop at a reject pile. A worker is smashing imperfect bottles. Crash. You pick up a shard. It is a piece of a dragonfly's wing, frosted with acid and stained with sepia. Even broken, it is beautiful. The air in the factory is hot and smells of burning oil and ozone. But if you close your eyes, you can almost smell the phantom scent that will fill these vessels. You are standing at the intersection of art and industry. You are watching the moment when the container became just as important as the content. You put the shard in your pocket, a souvenir of the glass age. You walk out into the cool air of the French countryside, leaving the roar of the furnaces behind. The sun is setting through the trees, casting a golden light that looks exactly like the amber perfume you just held. The world is becoming a product, and thanks to Monsieur Lalique, it is going to be a very, very beautiful one. The searing heat of the glass furnace and the clang of metal molds fade into a profound, almost church-like silence. You are in a room that feels like a cross between a library and a high-end pharmacy. The air is cool, filtered, and strangely odorless. You are sitting at a desk, but this is not just a desk. It is a semicircular, tiered altar of shelving that wraps around you like a cockpit. You are sitting at the perfume organ, l'orgue perfumes. You are a nose, le nez. In French culture, you are somewhere between a grandmaster chess player and a wizard. Fewer of you exist than astronauts. You have spent decades training your brain to recognize over 3,000 distinct olfactory materials. You can tell the difference between a rose grown in Morocco and a rose grown in Turkey with a single sniff. You can identify a synthetic molecule like iso-e-super at a concentration of 1 part per billion. But right now, you aren't smelling anything. You are writing. You hold a pen over a pad of paper. You are composing a formula. In your head, you can hear the smell. You know that if you mix hedion with vanillin and patchouli, it creates a luminous, woody sweetness. You don't need to mix it to know this. You can simulate the chemistry in your mind, just as Beethoven heard a symphony while deaf. This brings us to a historical fact. The Jean Carles method was developed by legendary nose Jean Carles, who created Miss Dior. In his later years, Carles lost his sense of smell completely due to anosmia. Yet he created masterpieces by memory and ratios. He was the Beethoven of perfumery, composing in silence, proving the nose is a tool. The real organ is the brain. You reach out to the shelves. The organ is arranged by family of scent, not alphabetically. The citrus notes, top notes, are on the left or top. The heavy woods and musks, base notes, are on the bottom or right. It is a keyboard of volatility. You dip a long, thin strip of white blotting paper, a moulette, into a small brown bottle. You wave it gently under your nose. Sniff. It is galbanum, intense, bitter green. It smells like snapped pea pods and wet earth. It is a difficult material. Use too much, and your perfume smells like a salad. Use just enough, and it smells like spring. You write down a number. 0.01%. You are building an accord. This is the chord of the perfume. Just as a C major chord is made of C, E, and G, a Chypre accord is made of bergamot, labdanum, and oak moss. You are trying to modify this classic structure to make it modern. You reach for another bottle. Cologne. This is a synthetic molecule invented in the 1960s. It smells of watermelon and sea breeze. It is the smell of the 1990s. You hesitate. Historians and critics still argue fiercely about the soul of scent in the age of chemistry. Purists claim that only natural materials have complexity and life. They say a synthetic rose is flat, like a photograph of a flower, while a natural rose is the flower itself. But modern perfumers argue that without synthetics, perfume would be boring and unethical. To get natural musk, you have to kill a deer. To get natural sandalwood, you have to cut down an endangered tree. Synthetics allow you to create ethical nature. They allow you to paint with colors that don't exist in the garden. Are you a photographer of nature or an abstract painter? You decide to add the cologne. You want this chypre to feel like it's standing on a cliff by the ocean. You mix the liquids in a small beaker. You stir. You dip a fresh moulette. You close your eyes. You inhale. It's wrong. It's too sharp. The green of the galbanum is fighting with the blue of the cologne. It smells like seaweed wrapped in plastic. It's a discord. You sigh. You drop the strip into a specialized waste bin that seals tight to prevent the smell from contaminating the room. You need a bridge. You need something to connect the green and the blue. You look at the organ. Your eyes scan the rows of modifiers. You stop at linalool. It's a component found in lavender and rosewood. It's floral but woody, fresh but soft. It's the diplomat of the perfume world. You rewrite the formula. You decrease the galbanum. You add a generous dose of linalool. This process can take years. A single fine fragrance might go through 500 revisions. You are looking for balance. You are looking for diffusivity, how well it projects, and tenacity, how long it lasts. You are also fighting olfactory fatigue. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. After about 20 minutes of smelling, your nose will shut down. It's a biological defense mechanism called adaptation. Your brain decides the smell is no longer a threat and stops registering it. To reset their noses, perfumers don't smell coffee beans. That's a department store myth. Instead, they smell their own skin. Specifically, the crook of their elbow or their own wool sleeve. The scent of self is the neutral baseline for the brain. It's the white noise of smell. You return to the beaker. You dip a new strip. Sniff. Yes, the sharp edge is gone. The scent opens with a burst of salty air, then transitions into a green, mossy heart that feels soft and velvety. It tells a story. It smells like a walk on a Breton beach in October. You smile. You label the vial Mod 42. But you are not done. You have to test it on skin. Paper lies. Paper is neutral. Skin is alive. Skin has pH and oils. A perfume that smells like heaven on a strip can smell like cat pee on a person. You dab a drop on your wrist. You wait. The top notes, the citrus and cologne, fly off immediately. They are the handshake. 10 minutes later, the heart notes, the galbanum and floral modifiers emerge. They are the conversation. Hours later, the base notes, the oak moss and synthetic woods, will remain. They are the memory. You sit in the silence, watching the dust motes dance in the filtered light. You are a ghostwriter for emotions. When a woman wears this perfume, she won't know about the galbanum or the percentages. She will just feel freer. She will feel the ocean. You have translated a chemical equation into a feeling. You look at the walls of the studio. They are lined with the history of your trade. The Guerlain B bottle, the Chanel square, the Lalique sculpture. You are the heir to all of them. But you are also a scientist. You are working in the molecular age. You pick up a vial of ambroxan. It is a synthetic substitute for ambergris, whale vomit. It smells mineral, salty, skin-like, and expensive. It is one of the most popular molecules in the world today. It is the img of perfumery. It makes everything smell better, bigger, and more addictive. You add a drop to your mixture, just a touch, to give it a modern shimmer. You cap the pen. The formula is finished. You hand the paper to your assistant, who will weigh out the concentrate in the lab. You sit back. The room is still silent. You haven't spoken a word. You haven't heard a note. But in your mind, the orchestra is playing a crushing, salty, green crescendo. You have composed a symphony that will be breathed, not heard. And if you are lucky, one day, someone on the subway will wear it, and for a split second, they will bring the ocean into the underground. The sterile, silent concentration of the nose at his organ fades. You step out of the high-rise laboratory, back onto the red, iron-rich clay of Provence. The air is warm, humming with bees, smelling complex and real. You are back in grass, but it is the 21st century, standing in a small, sun-drenched plot of land. This isn't the industrial monoculture of the 19th century. This is a walled garden, much like a vineyard. You are witnessing the slow scent revival. For decades, grass was dying. Real estate developers wanted to turn these flower fields into condos and swimming pools. Production moved to Egypt, India, and Turkey, where labor was cheaper. The perfume capital became a slogan. Most French perfume was being mixed in factories in New Jersey or Geneva. But you are here because of a rebellion. You walk through rows of centifolia roses. They look unkempt. There are weeds. There are bugs. This is organic farming. You are looking at a grand cru harvest. Just like wine, perfume has returned to terroir. You want a scent that varies by the year. You want to smell the drought of 2022. You want to smell the heavy rains of 2024. You are buying a vintage. You enter a small atelier on the edge of the field. It doesn't look like a chemistry lab. It looks like a kitchen. There are glass jars filled with alcohol and strange floating objects. You are witnessing the return of tincturing. Instead of using industrial absolutes made with hexane in a massive factory, these new artisan perfumers are soaking raw materials in alcohol for months, shaking them daily by hand. You see a jar filled with vanilla beans, another filled with honeycomb, and another filled with gray, rocky lumps. This brings us to a quirky tidbit. You are looking at ambergris, real, float on the ocean, puked up by a whale ambergris. For years, the industry replaced this with synthetic ambroxan. But the niche perfumers are hunting for the real stuff again. They buy it from beachcombers in New Zealand or Ireland. They tincture it like a rare tea. It smells of tobacco, ocean salt, and old paper. It is the only animal product still widely accepted in ethical perfumery. No one hurts the whale. You just have to wait for the ocean to give it back. It is the ultimate found object art. You watch the perfumer filter the ambergris tincture through a coffee filter. It is dark, golden, and murky. It is dirty in the best possible way. This is the niche revolution. You are tired of smelling like clean cotton or sport fresh. You want to smell like something. You pick up a bottle from the shelf. It has a handwritten label. It lists the ingredients. It tells you the name of the person who picked the flowers. It costs $300 for 50 milliliters. Why? Because you are paying for the yield. Here is a mainstream historical fact. In 2018, UNESCO granted the perfume-making skills in the Pays de Grace the status of intangible cultural heritage of humanity. This wasn't just a plaque. It was a lifeline. It legally protected the fields from being paved over. It signaled to the world that growing a rose and grass isn't agriculture. It is art. It sparked a massive influx of luxury brands, Chanel, Dior, Louis Vuitton, buying up the remaining independent family farms to secure their supply of real French flowers. You are standing on land that is now more valuable than a gold mine. But there is a shadow hanging over this sunny revival. You see the perfumer frowning at a document on his desk. It is a long list of chemical names. This is the IFR, International Fragrance Association Standards. Historians and critics still argue loudly about the death of perfume at the hands of regulation. Over the last 20 years, IFRA and the EU have banned or severely restricted dozens of natural ingredients. Oak moss, the soul of the shipper family, is restricted because a tiny percentage of people get a rash. Clove oil is limited. Even rose oil is watched. Purists argue this is cultural vandalism, like banning the color blue from painting because it makes some people sad. They claim modern perfumes are neutered, lacking the depth and longevity of the vintage greats. Proponents argue it's necessary for consumer safety. As you smell the low-eternal oak moss substitute, you wonder, is safety worth the silence of the scent? You leave the atelier and walk back out into the field. The sun is beginning to set, casting long purple shadows. Across the valley, the air is cooling. You take a deep breath. You smell the soil. You smell the heat radiating off the stone walls. You smell the wild fennel growing in the cracks. You realize that after centuries of trying to mask the smell of the tanneries, then trying to mimic the smell of the king, then trying to synthesize the smell of the abstract, we have finally circled back to simply trying to smell the earth. You are wearing a perfume called Unwashed Rose or Dirt and Rain. You are no longer trying to hide your humanity. You are trying to reconnect with it. You look at the bottle in your hand. The glass is recycled. The cap is wood. The juice inside is alive. It will age. It will turn dark. It will change just like you. The industrial roar of the steam engines and the air jets is gone. All you hear now is the wind in the cypress trees and the crunch of gravel under your feet. The frantic race to produce more has slowed down. You are in the era of slow scent. You sit on a stone bench overlooking the valley of grass. You can see the lights of the factories in the distance. But up here, it is quiet. You uncork the bottle. You dab a single drop on your pulse point. It doesn't smell like a chemical equation. It smells like a memory you haven't had yet. It smells of patience. You close your eyes. The journey is complete. You have traveled from the foul-smelling pits of the Middle Ages to the golden decadence of Versailles, through the blood of the Revolution and the smoke of the battlefield, into the cold abstraction of the laboratory, and finally, back to the garden. You are the sum of all these scents. Your skin is the canvas where history is written in invisible ink. You are the vessel. And as the scent settles on your skin, warming up, becoming part of you, you realize that you don't just smell good. You smell like time itself. The sun finally dips below the horizon, pulling the last golden threads of light from the sky and leaving the hills of Provence wrapped in a soft velvet twilight. The hum of the bees quiets down. The wind settles. The world is exhaling. You are safe here, sitting on the warm stone, watching the first stars appear. Tiny, white jasmine flowers blooming in the dark blue ceiling of the night. Think back to the journey you've taken. The sharp, clean scent of the lavender in the tanner's pocket. The warm, comforting vanilla of the queen's bath. The crisp, bright lemon of the emperor's cologne. The soft, powdery iris of the Paris boutique. They are all drifting around you now. Not as overwhelming waves, but as gentle, fading whispers. You don't need to analyze them anymore. You don't need to pick the flowers or stoke the fires. You don't need to worry about the plague or the revolution. Those storms have passed. The history books are closed. All that is left is the quiet rhythm of the night and the gentle rise and fall of your own breathing. In, smelling the cool night air. Out, releasing the day. Imagine the scent of the earth rising up to meet you, grounding, warm, and ancient. It is a scent that has been here for millions of years, long before kings and chemists, and it will be here long after. You are part of that cycle. You are held by it. A bottle in your hand feels cool and smooth. The scent on your wrist is a soft, protective shield. A personal lullaby composed just for you. Let the darkness wrap around you like a heavy, silk-lined cloak. The work is done. The extraction is complete. The essence has been captured. Drift into the space between the notes, into the silence between the heartbeat. You are perfectly distilled. You are at rest.